So we changed the plan. I love Henry Ford. If you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. It's simple, but it's, whenever I started, I kept hearing like, we don't like the way the corridor looks. I said, okay, well, let's get rid of the purple. I can't get rid of the purple. But you don't like how it looks. Like we can't. So one of the things that I stress to my board, and I stress this to anybody that's doing any kind of economic development or redevelopment, you can't be cheap and a world-class destination. You have to pick one. You can't be both. And so what we were doing is we were using purple. Purple fades much faster than almost any other color in the Florida sun. If you're going to use purple, because Disney uses it this much, and Disney has a touch of purple. They didn't purple everything. If you're going to use it, you have to repaint it like every year or every 2 years, because otherwise it looks faded. And so we were on like a 6-year paint cycle, which meant for the first 2 years after it was painted, it looked okay, and then it looked terrible for the next 4 years. Hard for me to go tell a business that they need to renovate when the stuff on my corridor looks bad. Fingers crossed. So when I started, the West 192 Development Authority was broken up into 3 district segments, basically. It's 15 miles, so each of these is roughly 5 miles. That's way too big. Because to put it in perspective, what they were trying to do was to create a look and feel around each of these areas. If you could imagine, if you went to Las Vegas and the Las Vegas Strip was 5 miles, you lose all the impact and effectiveness of being able to have something like that. It's no longer special if you stretched it out that far. So I use logical termini, and what I mean by that is when you're driving, there are things that make you think like, okay, this is a different area than that area. Red lights, overpasses. There are things that logically, okay, I'm leaving one area and going to the next. Our original plan didn't use logical termini, it just picked a place and drew a line. If we had followed that, that would have meant that eventually, midway down the sidewalk, the color of the sidewalk might have changed. That doesn't make any sense. You gotta do stuff that makes sense. So I took the 3 areas and broke it into 8. Celebration is its own sub-district. The area past Celebration is a sub-district that includes Old Town and Magic. It's really the heart of our tourism market. So on this side of town. So if you were to say to me, where do we want to attract tourists? Well, it's that area, not further down past Poinciana. That area is really not touristy. So by breaking it down into these sub-districts, it allows us to better plan uses for each of the sites and to redevelop the sites themselves for things that make sense. To give you an example, right down here, down near past Bass Road, you have a canoe launch, you have the Heritage Center, the Historical Society, there's a park. That area makes sense from a theming standpoint for me to start looking at woods and natural materials and a completely Florida native landscape palette to really drive home, you are in a special, cool place that is distinct and different. If I took that same palette and put it down in front of Old Town, it doesn't make any sense there. So that's the reason why we broke this down, so that we could do better planning in smaller increments. So how did I get people to change their signs and redo their buildings? It's simple. I paid for it. So I incentivize the change. I believe if you're going to do redevelopment, put your money where your mouth is. If I'm telling you that you reinvesting in your property is going to mean a large return on investment for you, but I get paid off the tax increment, then I should be happy with the return on investment too. So for me to start that, I put the money into it and said, you don't even have to pay for it, I'll pay for it. Because once I get the snowball rolling down the hill, a bunch of things happen that make good sense economically. This place, Monte Carlo, I would have, if I had bought this, I would have taken a match to it. So I was shocked whenever they came in and asked for a grant, and then what they proposed actually looked nice. I mean, it's still a 2-story open corridor, but it actually is, and this is going to sound bad, I don't mean it bad, but it is a true 1-star now. And that was like a negative star. It is a true, you know, hey, you've got a good value, but it's safe, the staff is friendly, the room is clean, the bed is nice, no frills. I love this because that was their old sign, and I specifically left the copyright on there because I can assure you that that sign did not get better looking between 2005 and 2017. They had never cleaned it, never, it was. So their new sign obviously looks much nicer. I thought you were wrapping me up. Like. This used to be next to the Cane Island shops, and the Cane Island shops used to exist. Because if you haven't driven by there yet, they're gone. So not only did I pay to demo this, to make it look like that, which eventually turned into that Dollar Tree, I also paid to demo the Cane Island shops, which is now going to be Aldi. If you've watched the movie The Florida Project, and you're wondering where the multicolored buildings are, I paid to bulldoze those. If you want to go to the Twisty Treat that was in that, I paid to bulldoze that. If you want to go to the old clinic that was sort of falling apart, can't find that anymore, paid to bulldoze that. So what I'm saying is when your friends come here and they want to do the tour of that movie, you can just share with them that that's Hollywood magic and that none of those sites really exist, except the Magic Castle. The only part of that movie that made me mad, Magic Castle, they show with like all this stuff hanging off the balcony, there's a 0 chance I would, if I drove by and saw that, I would pull in like a hawk. So just to give you a heads up, if you ever drive by there and you see towels hanging out, give me a call. So moving forward, what are we doing? This is what Old Town looks like roughly today. This is what Old Town would look like if we took down the power lines and undergrounded them and also took out the Washingtonian palms. And when I mention the Washingtonian palms, some people get mad because the Washingtonians have been here for a long time. Let me explain to you why we have no choice but to take them out. They're too tall. Washingtonians don't stop growing. They are now constantly being struck by lightning, and they're getting so tall that we can't prune them properly, which means one of those giant things could fall on somebody, and that's just not acceptable. This is what it looks like with new landscaping. So the plan, and you'll notice the lights changed from purple to black. When we installed the purple lighting 20 years ago, it was because the corridor itself looked terrible. What was beyond the light looked bad. So the goal was then, well, if we put in really nice sidewalks and put in nice lights, we could maybe hide the fact that what's behind it is bad. My goal is different, which is let's redevelop what's behind it, and then our stuff should just be an amenity. It should be a feature, not necessarily something you write home about, unless you're in my line of work. If you're in my line of work, you tend to take pictures of crosswalks and signs and lights when you're on vacation. Everybody else, the goal is just for them to think, hey, this looks nice, and that's it. This is down heading towards Margaritaville. This is with the new landscaping palette, and notice the sidewalks go along with pink. We have a sidewalk that's pink. One of the challenges with a pink sidewalk is anytime construction happens, getting that sidewalk to match. So they have to cut out a section of sidewalk to get in to do the construction. They go back to build something, and you end up with a big blob of sidewalk that's the right color, but doesn't match. Anybody that's had to repaint a section in their house knows what I mean. Like, it's the right color, but these are our benches. The cone is not always there. That's not a feature. And we want to make it more modern. Just something that's a little cleaner lines, make it look a little cleaner, less maintenance. Again, one of the issues that we have is we're using purple on almost everything. The maintenance cost is extremely high. And that's funded through an MSBU, which is an extra tax that people voted to assess themselves to maintain this. MSBUs are good things, so it's not bad that the folks voted to tax themselves to maintain stuff. But if you're doing that, you should look for highest and best use. What can I do that's going to look great and require the least amount of upkeep? You notice too, we're going away with most of this is showing no St. Augustine grass. We have grass up and down the corridor, and it's extremely hard because of 6 lanes of highway. The heat underneath where that grass is really, really hot. It's extremely hard to keep that. So we're looking at doing more drop tolerant, heat tolerant plants. Anybody want to venture a guess as to how much one of these costs?
$400,000.
Close. Close. It's about $350,000. So if you look at this and think, why is that so much money? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is hurricane codes. You have to build things to make sure that they'll stay and don't fly into the neighbor's window. But in this case, when we designed this, we took the approach that, like, you ever done cookie decorating with a kid? They don't know when to stop. It's like, oh, we can add sprinkles. What about gummy bears? Yeah. How about a deer clock? Of course. But cut out patterns that you can't see when you drive by because they're too small, and you also can't see when you're at the bus stop because you're underneath it. Yeah. This doesn't even show the top. At the top of every one of these bus stops is also a weather vane. Each one of them is custom made with a different thing on them, which would be fine and makes sense in some cases. Near Old Town, there's a car. Makes sense. But in locations where there's a deer, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel from that. Is it sadness? Deer used to live here. So the goal is to take them and kind of strip them down and say, okay, what do we really want this to look like? We want it to be a clean, efficient bus stop. It doesn't need to have all the bells and whistles because, quite frankly, it gets cluttered. Eventually, you hit a point where it's like, it's no longer, you no longer added a medallion to something. You've added 200 things to something, and none of them matter. We're also obviously changing out the landscaping, and even with our kiosks, we're looking at doing digital kiosks. Anybody that's been to Disney Springs has probably seen their outdoor digital kiosks. A little more interactive, allows us to provide a little bit more information.
Why are they so big? Why are they so big?
That's just a...
They need shade.
You mean the shelter itself?
Yeah, for the 4 people that use it.
Yeah, we actually have basically the biggest...
They're huge.
We're not tearing them down. This is just a redo of them. If we install new shelters, that will be looked at. One of the challenges we have with the shelters in general is we have 4 sets of benches, and 2 of the sets of benches are facing away from the street, I should say. Who's riding the bus and thinks, I'd like to sit on a bench and not face where the bus is coming so I can't see it? Yeah, and so what you end up having sitting there are just people who aren't riding the bus. And they had a similar issue in Anaheim, California, and they removed those benches. So that's one of the things we're actually looking at, is do we have too much street furniture for the uses? This is a pedestrian bridge. There are 2 of them scheduled. One is scheduled for 2020, will be somewhere in the vicinity of Old Town, potentially crossing between Old Town and the Gaylord Palms. Anybody that's driven out here knows that certain nights people are walking everywhere.
Yes.
The other one that we're looking at for the very near term is in front of the new Walmart that they opened on the other end of the corridor. Again, if you drive there at night at Old Lake Wilson Road, there are people dressed in black with their kids pushing a black stroller, carrying 25 bags from Walmart and crossing the street. And the intersection's lit, but it's not well lit. So the goal with these two is, I believe, I know some people don't, but I do. I believe in public art. So the goal with these is to make them an amenity beyond the crosswalk, which is why if you've been down John Young Parkway and you've seen the pedestrian crossing there, the chances are you've never seen anybody on it. And the reason why is, I'll speak to that, I have mobility issues. There's a 0 chance I would ever use that. Because it's asking me with mobility issues to walk up a circular ramp that's 4 times the crossing distance, get to the top, cross, and then walk back down a circular ramp. So you just yell to your friend over there, yes, we can grab lunch tomorrow. You start the journey. And so with this, it's basically, these are in Walt Disney. So if you go to Disney, around Disney Springs, you'll see these pedestrian bridges. Las Vegas has a ton of them. And so what I wanted to do is kind of mirror the two. Take maybe a little bit of Las Vegas and a little bit of Walt Disney, bring them together. But where it says West 192, maybe have a lit column, do something. We might even do a digital display there so that we can do sort of changing out art. Thought process being just make it amenity, make it something that people want to take a picture in front of, as opposed to spirals. I'll leave the one over